Hey, what's going on, everybody? How you doing today? Welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk with Chavez. I'm your host, Chavez, and today we got a little special here for you guys, as one of my very good friends, whom is a Packers fan, will be joining us, giving his NFC North predictions. Please welcome to the show my very good friend, Tim. Tim is part of the Navy, and I wanted to thank you for your service. And thank you for coming on to the show today.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, man. Glad to be here.
This division seems like it went through a lot of change this offseason. Every team, for one reason or another, made some headlines, whether it was the Vikings losing what appears to be half of their defense, the Lions moving on from one of their top players and drafting a guy they believe can fill his spot, the Bears acquiring some insurance via Jacksonville, or Green Bay attempting to solidify their future at a position no one thought they would go after just yet. So without further ado, I'll turn the mic over to Tim. Tim, tell us how you think the Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers are going to fare this year.
Well, I definitely appreciate it, man. So starting off with the Bears, in my unbiased opinion, I think that the Bears are up against an impending crisis. But let me tell you why. Because first off, their biggest offseason move start at the quarterback position. They say when you have two, you have none. So the incumbent Mitchell Trubisky is there, and then you've got Nick Foles riding his coattails, looking to have a quarterback competition there. Well, let me start off by saying, in terms of Trubisky, this is absolutely his last chance, make or break. Best case scenario for the Bears is that Trubisky comes out firing on all cylinders, quells that competition and the fans from really being how they are in Chicago. But the biggest problem with that offense, as great of a play caller as Matt Nagy is they really lack identity. Having an inexperienced or inefficient quarterback, and then, well, maybe a promising second-year running back, David Montgomery, they just never put it together last year. So really, I think that lack of explosion is going to keep they're not going to stay on the field. Montgomery was averaging 3.1 yards a carry last year, and when he was failing to move the chains, Trubisky couldn't do it either. They got one playmaker on the outside, and Allen Robinson. I think they have 14 tight ends on their roster this year, including Packers reject Jimmy Graham, who I'm pretty sure I could beat in a 40 right now. I don't see it happening. But the Bears open up with a relatively soft front end of their schedule, and if they're able to put it together in these first 4 games or so, I think they're going to be okay. That being said, again, I don't think that they're going to do it, because although Trubisky said a lot of the right things, I haven't seen enough from him to say that he is the playmaker and has the brains to run Nagy's complicated offense the way that Nagy sees fit. Because remember, Nagy is he's an Andy Reid disciple. You see some very similar stuff going on in that offense, and there's a big difference between Patrick Mahomes running that offense and Mitchell Trubisky. So then you got Foles there. Foles, while he had his good run and he does have experience with Nagy back in the KC days, you're talking about someone who, even though he won a Super Bowl, couldn't hold down the starting spot. And, they had Carson Wentz and a big investment there. Goes to Jacksonville, is supposed to take over as a starter. And he's replaced by 6th-round pick, I believe, Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, he was a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, and I mean, that mustache is off the chain. But if Foles can't beat out a 6th-round pick, do you foresee him taking out or unseating the number 2 overall pick? No, because I think these franchises invest a lot, with these high draft picks. And while their GM, Ryan Pace, was, brave enough to go out and sign Foles, even though basically all his success and his job security is resting in Trubisky's hand, it's a mess. And my biggest complaint with the Bears offense all of last season was, where was Tariq Cohen? The year before, he was their most dynamic playmaker. He was a problem that you had to account for on the field.
Absolutely.
And where did he go? So and he wasn't even injured last year. He just essentially disappeared from the game plan. I don't know where he went. Not a lot of weapons, and it's not a good situation on that side of the ball. So where's the Bears' strength? It's on the defensive side of the ball, specifically the front seven. As good as they are, you've got a lot of playmakers and just really stout, solid guys. You know, in that typical Chicago defense. Well, when your offense can't stay on the field, your defense is going to be on the field more. And what part of the defense is going to wear down and get tired the quickest? The front seven.
Front seven, yeah.
Right? So eventually, and they're not giving up a ton of points or anything, but they're tired. They're not making the explosive, dynamic plays that they were making 2 years ago on their 11-5 season. I'm not going to say double doink, but yes, I am. The double doink season.
It was
right?
It was a block, man. It got blocked.
Yeah, that's not what Chris Collinsworth said. But anyway, so they're taking the strength of their team and they're essentially downgrading it because their offense can't get off the field. So they're relying on their secondary to save them. Their secondary, see Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller, great players. All right,
Absolutely.
Everyone else is a liability. And when you have quarterbacks in the NFC North like Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins, they're going to exploit those guys. I honestly think the only path to success or saving grace is that Mitchell Trubisky comes out like a man on fire and turns the world upside down. Do you see that happening?
I really don't see that happening.
I don't either. And Trubisky is a high character, good guy.
Absolutely.
He's shown flashes, but I haven't seen enough to say that okay, they're going to turn around this season. I think 8-8 last season was they reached their ceiling based on his play and all the other things that I talked about. They signed a lot of free agents this year, but no one that's going to change the game. Them coming off another bad year this year, I think that's going to lead into a downward spiral, and you're looking at rebuilding Chicago this time next year. Just a Packers fan's opinion. But
so where do you have them going then?
I see them as a 5 to 6 win team. Because they've got enough going on to where they can win some games against maybe lesser or equal opponents. The NFC North is it's a black and blue division. We beat up on each other, except for a certain team that went undefeated in the division last year. The rest of their schedule, it's not easy. 6 wins is their cap, and if they get anything other than that, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
You're talking pick-wise then?
Yeah, I mean they're a proud franchise. They're not going to tank. They've sucked enough on their own over the last few years to where they've had some high draft picks. And funny enough, a lot of those draft picks are owned by other teams because they wanted to basically give everything away for Khalil Mack, who is great. I fear him, but they gave away a lot of draft capital, and they don't have a lot of the pieces coming up in the future through their system, their draft draft picks. I think they're a mess. I think the organization is in a good place if Trubisky does what he needs to as a number 2 overall pick. Don't see it happening. Downward spiral. I don't like it. And sorry, Bears. Double doink sucks.
So you're thinking that Matt Nagy might be canned at the end of this year then?
So my thing with the Bears coaching and front office is they didn't necessarily have a bad strategy in trying to build a team. Look at how much success there's been in the league over the years with having a quarterback on a rookie contract and being able to build a team around them. They knew they had certain pieces in place, so they went out and they gave up a lot to get Khalil Mack, who was really going to anchor that defense and turn it into a big deal. But because of the things I already talked about, hasn't panned out quite as they wanted. So I think a lot of the onus on that is more so on Ryan Pace. I think he's in a bigger hot seat than Nagy is. Nagy's proven that he's a capable coach, but he can only work with what he has to work with. And I think he's been a strong Trubisky supporter, but maybe if he had his choice quarterbacks, like young quarterbacks for the draft, he could be all right. His seat's warm, but I don't necessarily think that if they have like a 5-6 win season, that he'd be out. But you know how the GMs are. You know, when a new one comes in, they want their own guys from players to coaches.
Well, I know you said that you got them winning 5 or 6 games. I personally had them going 10-6, but I think I'm going to change that now.
Well, I mean, you know, as the smartest football fan in the world, I could see why you would change your opinion after listening to mine.
All right, so you think that Ryan Pace will be definitely on the hot seat, if not canned after this year, and that Nagy will be on the hot seat at least, if their year goes as you're predicting.
Yeah, I think both their butts are warm. Pace more so than Nagy.
All right, so let's move on to the Packers then. Well, I know you're a huge Packers fan. As long as I've known you, you've always liked the Packers. So interested to see what you, if you'll be biased or not.
Okay, so Packers, Kings of the North. Yes, I am a hardcore Packers fan, and they've had an interesting offseason for such a slow offseason. One of the very first things I talked about with the Bears is their lack of identity. I think the Packers are building a very strong identity, and it's not the same identity as years past. We're coming into our third season with Brian Gutekunst as the general manager, and then our second season with Matt LaFleur. We've seen the changing of the guard. We've seen a different approach to team building. We've put a lot of draft capital and then free agency capital into our defensive side of the ball. There's been a lot of hits, a few misses, but I think that our defense is in a good spot, which is contrary to popular belief based on the NFC Championship. That was a rough one. We'll touch on that here just a little bit, and I want to start with the offensive side of the ball. So the Packers are not the Packers of old. Still have Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he's maybe not quite what he used to be. He can still get it done, but he's not going to dominate and carry games the way he did, you know, throughout most of the 2010s. And that combined with bringing in Matt LaFleur from Tennessee, Mike Shanahan, disciple Sean McVay, those kinds of guys. He wants to be a run-first team and build the passing game off of the run. And we saw that last year. We saw Aaron Jones, the very dynamic playmaker, really emerge. He'd always showed flashes, but under Mike McCarthy, never really got the touches to be that primary ball carrier.
Yeah. And I'm very upset about that myself. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but just one real quick note. I had Aaron Jones on my fantasy football team, and I ended up trading him away in a dynasty league, and I wish I wouldn't have.
We'll see how that goes for Zeke. Keep that in mind during your fantasy draft. So yeah, we've seen what Aaron Jones can do when the ball gets put in his hand. He's one of the shiftiest, sneakiest runners in the game. He's fast. He's a great receiver out of the backfield. But he is a small, certain type of back. I'm gonna put the Jordan Love pick over here for a minute. We can discuss that later if you want. Their biggest pick to me, and the most interesting one, was their second-round pick with A.J. Dillon out of Boston College. That dude is a hammer, right? So we've had Jamal Williams as our number 2 back. He's all right. AJ Dillon is a monster. And so I think what you're going to see, we're going to be a lot more run heavy. We're going to slowly introduce our new rookie into the running game throughout the beginning parts of the season. And then it all lines up perfectly. The majority of our away games are in the front side of our schedule, the first 8-9 weeks, right? Okay. We only have like 3 away games in the second half of our schedule. So what does that mean? That cold November, December, January football, right? How do you win games that time of the year? Through an effective running game. So now we have this big, giant Derrick Henry-like running back coming into his own, right? In those colder winter months where no one wants to tackle, but these big, heavy backs. We saw it with Derrick Henry in their playoff run last year. I think we're setting up something very good there. And again, we're doing all this, before Aaron Rodgers completely falls off. He's older. He's maybe not what he used to be, but he's not Peyton Manning with his rubber band arm. His last year in Denver, right?
Yeah, he's definitely not going to be that bad this year by any means.
No. I don't think he's going to be bad at all. He's still a very effective quarterback. He has people have their criticisms of him, and some of those points are fair. But if that running game doesn't work out, Aaron Rodgers, not a bad fallback, right? That ball control offense that they're going to run, combined with a defense that is full of playmakers, and was, I think, number 3 in the league in their turnovers. Their dynamic pass rushing duo with the Smith brothers, plus Kenny Clark on the line, and that the budding all-star or all-pro that is Jair Alexander on the back end. They've got a lot of really good pieces on defense.
I've always liked Jair Alexander personally. I think he doesn't get enough credit for as good of a corner and as young as he is. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's coming into his 3rd year in the league. And just to touch on him and how good he really is, I was watching his highlight reel maybe like 2 hours ago, and there were plays that I completely forgot about because he's a breakup guy. He's not the ball hawk and the interception type, but that's going to spike this year. Mm-hmm. But he can cover literally anyone. All the top wide receiver ones in the league. But more importantly, in his highlight reel, I'm seeing him break up passes to Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce, the best, most uncoverable tight ends in the league, blowing up plays in the backfield, sacking the quarterback. He is a complete player, and he's only getting better. I
want to say his rookie year, you guys played the Chargers. I'm pretty sure.
I don't think that we did the rookie year. If we played the AFC or the
AFC West,
we played them. Yeah, if we played them last year, we played the AFC West last year. We shouldn't have, but maybe.
I can't remember exactly.
I think you're talking about the Rams game.
I swore it was him covering Keenan Allen that I was impressed with.
I remember his rookie year, he had a breakout game against the Rams, like covering like Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods, where he was like taking over the TV on defense.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, I remember that. That was the year the Rams went to the Super Bowl, right?
It was. That was the Ty Montgomery "Don't take it out" and we fumbled game as we were coming back.
I actually was watching that game. I remember now.
Man, I miss you, Ty. You were a good dude, but you fucked up.
He did. He really screwed that one up.
Yeah. But the Packers, we have our own ways of doing that kind of stuff to ourselves. I think our defense is actually a lot stronger than people give us credit for. And on that side of the ball, outside of Blake Martinez, it's going to be mostly the same core of defensive players. And we lost out on Tramon Williams too. But Blake Martinez, I think we have definitely an athleticism upgrade in Christian Kirksey. He's going to be able to move laterally, and he's going to be a lot quicker. And I think that's going to do very well in Mike Pettine's system. Coming down to our games against the Chargers and both games against the Niners last year, those were our worst games. That's where our defensive rankings, and if you will, fell way, way down. Do we do a lot personnel-wise to fix our run defense issues? I would agree that no. But if an organization, right, of the Packers caliber, a well-run organization, goes into the draft and they say, we don't need to, invest high draft capital into our defensive line, right? That's not like a misstep on their part. Post-game press conferences and then the league-ending or the year-end press conferences, Matt LaFleur and Mike Pettin both talked about how those were schematical issues that they were having, and they failed to make the proper in-game adjustments. They put a lot of onus on themselves. While I think we could use another effective big body, Mike Daniels, I see you out there. You're still a free agent. Come back cheap. Let's win that fucking Lombardi. I think that they are well aware of their own shortcomings and are working very hard to fix that. It's still not going to be easy. That's a tough challenge. And when we play the Niners in Week 9 this year, they know what they're going to do, and they're going to come out and try and do the same. And I think that's going to be affected by our schematic changes, but also how we carry ourselves on the front of the ball or on the other side of the ball. If by Week 9 that A.J. Dillon character is really coming into his own, and we start hammering that D-line, which is the strength of their defense, and can change the flow of the game, I think we're talking about very different games. On the Packers, I do want to go back to the other side of the ball on offense and point out a couple of things that I skipped over. The biggest thing in the offseason was our draft. Everyone was crying wide receivers, and then we go out, we make the Jordan Love pick, and so we failed to address this need, hypothetically. Well, if you look at our roster of wide receivers, we have a bunch of guys they're all young behind Davante Adams, they're on the cusp. So Davante Adams doesn't need to be said. He's the most underrated wide receiver in the league. He is a beast. He stays healthy this year, he'll be an All-Pro.
Even last year, I thought he should have been an All-Pro, even with missing those few games, because he definitely proved that he is worth one of those spots, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really good wide receivers in the league. There are.
But, he was getting double and triple teamed and still getting the ball, man. I mean, there's not too many guys that do that.
And look at the game where he got injured in the fourth quarter, where his turf toe came up.
Right.
I think it was
I was watching that game.
It was either the Eagles or the Lions game. When he went out, he had 180 yards receiving. He was taking over that game. And when a guy's having a game like that, it's not like they're they're not double teaming and triple teaming. I'm like, they're
exactly
okay, let's stop this guy. And they couldn't. He's that good. Look at him against the Seahawks in the playoffs, how he burns Richard Sherman in the championship game.
Mm-hmm.
He's a beast. But everyone, underrated or not, everyone knows he is who he is. So behind him, you got Allen Lazard, who's going to be our number 2 receiver this year. 6'5", not the fastest guy in the world, but he's fast, and he's a solid possession receiver. You're talking about a guy who came up through practice squads and went undrafted. I mean, what a
so he's got that chip on his shoulder for sure.
Very much so, and there's stories about how he got taken on the practice squad. He came in the next year and he was down 30 pounds and slimmed up and bulked up and he's a stud, and you definitely saw flashes of it last year. And to make that transition from the practice squad to, hey, I'm Aaron Rodgers' number 2 target, I think he did very well. Right now he's going to come in having a full off season, fingers crossed, of being that guy, and you're going to see him prosper. Who was supposed to be our number 2 receiver last year, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, he had an off year. He was doing all right in the beginning of the year. Apparently there was confidence issues going on with him. He fell off, and honestly, I think he's fighting for a roster spot at this point. He could have a strong, kind of training camp, preseason, and be a number 3 or 4 guy. But I think he's fighting for a roster spot. So we went. We brought in Devin Funchess, not a bad receiver. It's a low risk, low reward thing. I think he's on $1 million contract. So being a veteran that's shown some flashes over there, he could be beneficial. He's not going to be a world burner and 100 reception kind of guy. But okay, we have another solid person there. The sleeper, I'm saying this now, a man named Equanimeous St. Brown out of Notre Dame. Came out in the same draft as Marcus Valdes-Scantling, and he is a guy that Aaron Rodgers really likes, which honestly in that wide receiver room out there in Packers land is the most important thing, is that rapport with Aaron Rodgers. Ask Jordy, ask James, ask Greg, Donald, all those guys.
I was just going to say, it seems like you guys are always churning out a top receiver every rotation, every time.
Yep, that's really what it is, and it's not because we go and spend a first round draft pick on them. Our scouting department is really good, and it always takes a year or two to build that rapport with Aaron Rodgers. And then once that chemistry is there, it's game on. So he's a guy that really came on strong at the end of his rookie year. Rodgers really liking him, and then I think it was week 2 or 3 of the preseason last year, that game where they played on a shortened field up in Canada. He gets hurt and he spends the entire year on IR. So he's back. People forgot he existed because he was only a second-year guy.
It's crazy how that happens. You forget about people so quick. At least the general fandom does.
Oh yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you, who the Bills drafted 3 years ago in the 4th round and where they are now. So I mean, a little, following the Packers every day. Yeah, you're gonna. But this is my message to you. In round 13, 14, of your drafts, instead of picking that defense or kicker that doesn't matter, you want to take a flyer. Equinemi St. Brown, bury him, could pan out. Jay Sternberger, second-year tight end. He played most of the year hurt, or was hurt most of the year, and then you had Jimmy Graham up there clogging up targets and receptions for no reason. I think he's a breakout candidate. I don't think he's going to be a Travis Kelce, George Kittle type, but he's going to be solid. I see him as right around a number 10 receiver or tight end in the league. Another draft pick that we had this year, another tight end, but being that we're going for that Kyle Shanahan type offense, we drafted the guy Josiah DeGuara out of Cincinnati, and we have no intentions of playing him at tight end. He's going to be our fullback or our H-back, okay. our Kyle Juszczyk type player. I'm telling you, we are building a Niners type offense with Aaron Rodgers running it. So you're gonna see some really good things, and that's gonna really help our defense this year. And my one last thing on the Packers is that people say Aaron Rodgers is falling off. Right? Look at Aaron Rodgers last year, and his number of downfield attempts was like the 3rd highest in the league. Did he connect on all of them? No. Was there possibly chemistry issues and whatnot with some receivers? Yeah, I think with that crop of young receivers, that's what was happening. Not saying he was perfect, but the man could still throw the ball. They're still going to take their shots. And as that chemistry improves and that continuity is there, when we're not pounding the ball into people's faces, you're going to see that bootleg action work. And that bad man that he is going to be dropping bombs. It's going to happen. He's still got it. They have a much tougher schedule this year, and they're 13-3 last year. People say, "Oh, that was a fluke." They won a lot of close games. Could those have went the other way? Yes, but I'm gonna say they're still 11-12 win team this year. Like I said, the front half of their schedule is a lot harder, so you might see them, in that first half looking a little beaten, battered. They have a week 4 or 5 bye, which is gross. I hate that.
Yeah, that's terrible. It's actually, it is a week 5 bye. You guys, the Vikings and the Lions all have a week 5 bye, which I see as ridiculous. But I do agree with you. I do believe that the Packers are an 11-12 win team. I don't. People say that their schedule was easy last year, but they still were winning games. It's not like you said Rodgers was falling off or anything. He still was showing that he is more than capable of taking the team to the playoffs and winning playoff games. So I see them going 11-5 myself. I don't see Rodgers falling off at all either. If anything, I think he might have a better season this one coming up because he's got that much more time to figure out the offense and get acclimated with the receivers. So you might see even better numbers from him, in my opinion.
You're going to see the up-tempo offense more this year.
You heard it here first, guys. No, but yeah, man, I agree with you. I like what you guys have done, and to sustain success in the future as well. I mean, that's if the Jordan Love pick pans out. What are your thoughts on that, man? Do you think he's gonna?
quarterbacks, I think, are like one of the hardest positions to say whether they will or they won't, because all of them in college, they all show flashes. He's a smaller school guy coming out of Utah State. I think the big appeal with him is for some of those great flashes that you see out of him on his college tape. It's very Patrick Mahomes-esque. And so being that Mahomes is Mahomes and the league knows that now, the love affair with that style of play and that arm is going to be bigger. He absolutely has the arm talent. The team around him wasn't great, and some of that is on the team, some of that is on him. But if you're going to sit behind and learn from anyone in the game, I mean, I couldn't think of anyone more cerebral and that I would want to learn from than Aaron Rodgers. Do I hate the tension in the situation? Yes. But Aaron Rodgers is a professional, and we've seen it before. Even if you take the future out of the equation, let's just assume that at best he's a capable backup. We've seen before when Rodgers goes down and how it affects, it just sucks the air out of our team. Hey, it might not hurt to have a pretty solid backup. So
absolutely,
I'm optimistic.
And I like to be too, especially with a young kid. I don't want to put anyone down before you ever even see him take a snap in the NFL. Right. I never thought that was fair for anybody. No, I think it's nothing but good for Jordan Love to learn from Rodgers. I think that can be nothing but a positive for him. You're right that it does suck that mostly really media has put tension in the situation. I know Rodgers knows it's a business. He was brought in the same way. I don't think he's gonna really let it affect him.
Yeah, it's the love pick doesn't hurt Rodgers in like I'm gonna get overtaken as a starter. The whole tension of it is Rodgers saying he wants to play more than the 4 years that he has left on his contract and play beyond that. And then you have the situation where, okay, you have this rookie, he's coming in on a 4-year contract with a 5th-year option, and, Rodgers has a big contract. It just kind of goes into a team-building thing. I think best case scenario is we take advantage of the window that we have now. Rodgers, just knocks these next 2 Super Bowls out real quick, rides off in the sunset, and then, hey, the future's here.
I like it. Yeah, so both have the Packers going like 11-5, 12-4.
Remember that. If you want, we could talk about the other 2 teams that also aren't going to win the division.
All right, so let me get in on this with how I think the Lions are going to do this year. And to be honest, I believe the Lions are going to have an uphill battle. I love their offense personally. I love Matt Stafford. I've always been a fan of his since he came in the league. I played and still play quarterback, so I got a different appreciation for that position than some people do. He just has never had a good team around him, really. I mean, yeah, a few players here and there, but never a complete team to really make a push in the playoffs.
Do you think he would have traded Calvin Johnson for 2 half Calvin Johnsons?
I mean, there's a good chance since there was literally nobody else. I mean, last year he threw for 2,500 yards in 8 games, so he was on pace for a 5,000-yard season. He had 19 touchdowns, so almost 40 touchdown season as well, like on pace for it. I think Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay are 2 one of the more underrated pairs of receivers. I don't think enough people. You're an NFC North fan, so you hear about all that stuff. But us other people, the rest of the NFL, we don't hear about those 2 as often as we should, in my opinion, as good as they are. I think Kenny Galladay might make a push this year, especially with Matt Stafford being healthy and hopefully being there for the whole season. Galladay, I believe, will make a push to be considered one of the top receivers in this league. Going into, his 4th or 5th year now?
Yeah, he's real quiet his first couple years. It's something like that. It might even be only like year 3 or something for him. But
yeah, I know it's not very far. Stafford obviously likes him. You could tell. I really saw that in the 2018 season when they came to Buffalo and played. Uh, those two have a very good rapport together, and I like where that's going. I still believe T.J. Hawkinson, also their tight end draft pick from last year. I think he's gonna have a better year. He did miss some time last year. He was injured, but like we've said before, it takes tight ends. That's one of the longer positions to develop in the NFL, I think.
it is, and for him to have shown the flashes that he did, I mean, like week one, it was like, oh shit, I mean, he's going to be the guy, and he came back down to earth, but yeah, still showed flashes. His injury didn't help his development, but
right. I mean, he averaged 11 and a half yards per catch, and that's with only playing. I think he was in 7 games. He ended up being hurt for a good amount.
Dude's got the talent for sure.
Definitely. And Darrell Bevel, their offensive coordinator, I really like how his system was getting the ball moved last year. Even with not quality starting quarterbacks after Stafford went down. I think those two guys they kept the teams in it, but they're definitely not Matthew Stafford. I mean, they didn't win a single game.
Yeah, if I was a Lions fan, I might take Bevel's system over his predecessor, but in name, he's no Jim Bob Cooter. Kind of think you need that spice. Take your game, but put a little flair in your name.
Fair enough. Yeah, so most of their games were close last year, and Bevel's offense kept it that way because his defense was not that good last year, and I don't understand how you're supposed to be a defensive-minded coach, but your defense is not the strength of your team.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be personnel, I would imagine.
And we'll see this year because this is year 3, so you've had plenty of time to get your guys that you want in there and instill your system. So to me, this is make or break year for Matt Patricia.
Yeah, he's stolen enough Patriots at this point. He should have the Patriots on defense by now.
He really has, and he really should. I mean, they just signed Jamie Collins too. So. But I did like their draft, though, for the most part. Picking up another running back to pair with Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift, I thought was a good move. Kerryon is not a bad back, in my opinion. He's done well when on the field. It's just he has injuries every year so far since he's been in the league. So hopefully having DeAndre will help take some of that load off of him and make it so he can sustain durability during the season. If the offense can get the run game going like they did in spurts last year, they had a couple of games where they had good amount of yards on the ground.
Those are like the 2 closest games we had the losses in our division were against the Lions. We beat them both in the final seconds, both games. I mean, that's a team that plays tough. They've got some grit.
Absolutely. I don't question Matt Patricia being able to get his guys motivated or anything like that. I just situationally, there's times where he has shown he is very inept, and I don't think that you can continue that being a head coach. And if we don't see any improvement from him this year, I think you're going to see him out the door if they can't get it together. But I think that the aforementioned defense can improve this year. They did bring in a couple more pieces.
Yeah, I don't recall most of their free agent pickups this year. To me, their big thing on defense is bringing in Jeff Okudah. As talented as he is he going to stand up to Aaron Rodgers?
You're supposed to be really good at defense. Why would you ship off your best player on that side of the ball just to draft a similar prospect instead of keeping that player and still drafting Jeff Okudah? anyways, and having Okuda learn from Slay, like that would have been, in my opinion, the best way to go.
Yeah, take the pressure off of him and put Slay in the same room to learn from it, watch film, and yeah, I mean, that would have been a great 1-2 punch on both sides of the field to have those. But so now, hey Rook, you got the spotlight on you.
Right?
Live up to that draft status.
Yeah, and some kids just don't end up living up to that. The first round picks are what, a 50% success rate? It's not like it's guaranteed he's gonna be the next Darius Slay or better.
Or he could be the GOAT. Who knows?
He could be. He very well could be. I did like their third round pick also, Julian Okwara out of Notre Dame. He's going to end up playing defensive end for them as well. At some point, I expect him to start opposite of Trey Flowers. And I think they're going to make a nice duo edge rushing pair. Oh, yeah. And they added Desmond Trufant, who is going to be okay. He's definitely not going to be able to keep up with number one guys consistently. But for Okuda to learn from, I think, will be positive.
He can make some plays, but can't count on him.
Exactly. Not going to be he's not going to make you plays to win the game every single week or anything like that. They did add Reggie Ragland also, who I like a little bit. I don't think he's a superstar or a mega star by any means. I don't expect him to wreck games at the position, but I do expect some splash plays from him.
I love him coming out of college, man.
Yeah,
he's a stud. Sometimes fit is everything, and he's a guy that I could see where maybe didn't work out where he was, but coming in and being under that defensive head coach Matt Patricia, he could tie it up, and he again, Packers fan, but he could tie it up and be an impact guy.
This is all contingent, though, on the fact that Matt Patricia will figure it out this year with that defense and the team as a whole, and will be able to win some games for them. I mean, me personally, I don't really care for the guy. He wears a pencil in his ear that he never fucking uses. You literally never use that goddamn pencil. Why do you have it? You look like a tool.
Listen, you don't know if when they get off the field they have to take a Scantron, right? You need that number 2 handy. And
get the fuck out of here.
Jokes on everyone else when they're asking for pencils. He's the only one in the league that can fill out a Scantron on time.
It's literally a brand new pencil every time, only sharpened once. It might be the same exact pencil every fucking Sunday for all I know.
I would get too nervous during the game. I'd be fucking sitting there chewing.
Right? Right?
But good for him.
I just seeing him with that stupid pencil there, and then he's got the fucking the pages with the dry erase marker.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, what's the pencil for? Just fucking get rid of it.
I know there's a lot of videos out there for that because that's his thing, but I've never cared enough about a shitty team to look at videos about their head coach. So.
I don't look at videos about it. It's just because I watch every game that I possibly can. So when I see this douchebag on the screen with a pencil that he's never going to use, it bothers me, man.
It's oh, we're playing the Packers next week. Let me pencil in that L.
You're such a corny fucker sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that hasn't changed.
All right, yeah. So I mean, they got Matt Stafford, solid running back. The offense is definitely functional. Defense, a lot of unanswered questions. We don't know. We don't know if Matt Patricia can tie it all together on that side of the ball. Where do you think they end up?
So I have the Lions going 9-7, competing for a last wild card spot. But if they don't manage to make the playoffs, they will end up getting rid of Matt Patricia, in my opinion, because they've said this offseason already they want a winning team. And then he went and traded Darius Slay right after that. So I don't know. I think that the offense will be able to do enough, though, and give them a winning record, get them into the playoffs. What do you think?
I mean, like I said, do I think they're like a great team? No, but I didn't think the Niners were a great team going into last year either. So my biggest thing with them is that they're a tough team and they play a lot of close games. They unfortunately come out the other side, and I think if you look at that in the opposite fashion with the Packers, right? Like, oh, we won a lot of our close games. The Lions lost it. The fact that they're playing tough games, I think, is a testament to coaching, whereas the fact that they're losing them is probably a testament to personnel. So, yeah, I see him right. I could see him right around that like 8-8 bubble. But again, I really just show me something, and then I'll have more to say. But like, I don't ever see anything from the Lions. So
I personally think that Matt Stafford gets gypped on the MVP conversations like every year because he is the reason that team wins.
Calm down, cowboy. Like,
he is the best player on that team every year, hands down. Like, there's no debating that. Firstly. Secondly, they wouldn't even have been anywhere near playoffs at any point if he was not on that team.
But it's okay. My opinions are so factual, but yet controversial. You don't want to hear it. Gotcha. I was going to say, Matt Stafford, solid quarterback. Oh, I've always liked the guy.
I personally think he should be in the MVP conversation every year as long as he's healthy. Maybe not win it, but at least give him the recognition of being the best player on the team if they go to the playoffs. If they don't go to the playoffs, I'm fine with him not being in that conversation. But if they do, he deserves some respect. Put some respect on his name.
It's a sensible point, my friend.
So I personally have the Lions battling it out with the Vikings for the playoffs positions. The Vikings are generally a pretty stout team from top to bottom, especially on defense. I like their roster year in and year out usually. This year, though, they will be going through a major facelift on the defensive side of the ball. These offseason moves, or lack thereof, has me a bit concerned for this team. Not only did they lose both of their starting corners, but one of their defensive leaders and Danielle Hunter as well. They did try to draft and replace these positions, but it takes time for young players to develop, and especially in a complex system like Mike Zimmer's. I like how Kirk Cousins turned things up a little bit last year and actually won a couple of big games before being absolutely slaughtered by the San Francisco 49ers. Losing Stephon Diggs. Yep, go ahead. What'd you say?
I don't know anything about that or what that's like. So
yeah, not at all. Kind of seemed like the NFC North just said, "Here you go right to the Super Bowl, guys."
I mean, we beat an NFC West team to get to the championship. Just saying. So
you beat a team that had no running back, really.
Beast mode, dog.
Who's been out for 2 years?
Apples and oranges. I mean, you're worried about the details, dude.
Chris Carson was having a pretty damn good year before he got injured. Just saying. You guys got smoked by the Niners running all over you. I'm not so sure if Seattle had their original running back group that you guys would have beat them.
Anyway, so before we were talking about this fictitious Packers loss, we were talking about the Vikings.
But anyways, losing Stephon Diggs is going to take some time to overcome. Although drafting Justin Jefferson will definitely help fill that void in the long term, I'm concerned about this season, especially if the team can't get Dalvin Cook back in time for the regular season.
Running backs, man. I feel bad. I feel for running backs. I think that's like one of the biggest plights in the NFL right now.
I completely agree with that. I think they're treated unfairly, and I believe that they should be able to get their money earlier. But yeah, I personally understand why Cook wants more money and believe he deserves more than what he's getting for sure. But I don't think that he can really ask for Christian McCaffrey type money because he hasn't proven that he can stay on the field the way that McCaffrey has. And that's very, very hard for anybody to do. And the level that McCaffrey does it is just ridiculous.
Yeah, at that point, you're paying for his skill and his his upside. But if you're talking about from a franchise standpoint as an investment, you hit the nail on the head. He hasn't proven that he can consistently stay on the field, and that's going to hurt him in contract negotiations.
I agree. That being said, though, I don't see it in the Vikings' best interest to start the season without him on the field. They start off with a pretty tough schedule, and it would be hard to overcome a significant deficit in this division and conference in general, really.
Yeah, there's some big boys in the NFC, period, outside the division.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely see the Vikings competing for a playoff spot this year, going 9-7 as a result of their off-season losses on the defensive side mostly. But if they don't have Dalvin Cook, I expect that number to be a little bit lower, to be honest. I like Alexander Madison, and they brought in Amir Abdullah, but those two would not be able to sustain the same type of production that Cook would. Don't get me wrong, they would fill in nicely, and I don't expect a crazy amount of change in play calling since Gary Kubiak was helping mold the offense last year with Stefanski anyways.
Oh, no, like just talking about like their offense in general, while they had a pretty efficient offense last year, a lot of weapons. I think you might have seen the peak or really close to what their offense gets with running it through Kirk Cousins. That's not to say like they had a bad offense or that Kirk Cousins is bad, but I mean they had a pretty good offense last year. Who knows what's going to happen with Dalvin Cook? I hope he sits out the entire season. But I mean, these things have a way of tending to work themselves out outside of like maybe Melvin Gordon. They're going to be what they are, right? And I think the losses on defense, it's going to catch up. It's like as soon as they get the quarterback right, other things start falling apart. As soon as they have everything except for the quarterback, then they're always like dancing around it. They never really tie it all together.
True.
The Vikings are the Vikings, man.
I mean, I do like Mike Zimmer, though. I think that he'll be able to get his defense in order, at least be able to compete. I don't think they'll be dominating games by any means, but I believe that he will have them ready to at least make it so they're not getting blown out.
Yeah. I don't think they're blowout candidates by any means. They're mostly like still solid roster. Maybe not as strong as like the last 2 years, but they're a solid team. You're saying 9-7?
I'm saying 9-7. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to that myself. Like, it could dip one up or one down, but right. I think they'll be a competitive team. They'll beat your Lions and Bears more often than not. Scrap a couple wins that way, but yeah, they don't scare me. As a division foe.
Rightfully so. I mean, I personally think you guys are gonna win the division, no problem. Be fighting for that number 1 seed, to be honest. And I think you guys have a really good chance at getting it.
Well, thank you, sir. On behalf of Packers Nation, appreciate the respect you put on our names.
No problem, man. No problem. So I don't know, man. Anything else you want to say about these teams?
I just hope that we have a season, and when we do, there's a lot of parity. So these are early-ass predictions. We'll see how training camp and injuries and all that stuff go. But at the end of the day, we're going for number 5. Bring that Lombardi home, dog.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely way too early to be making these predictions, but I wanted to get the show started. Start with something that I love, football. And hey, man, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your service as well. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you, man.
No worries, man. I appreciate you too, and I love all the videos that I've seen so far. So it's cool to definitely be a part of that, and you're going places, man. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, bro. So there you have it, guys. Our predictions for the NFC North. We both have the Green Bay Packers winning the division again this year due to familiarity for Rodgers and LaFleur going forward. And Rodgers coming into the year with a fire burning, trying to prove he's still got what it takes to guide his team to a championship, going 11-5. I'm predicting this to be a very tight race till the end as well between all four teams, possibly having all four teams go into the playoffs with the new format. It is possible if they all finish ahead of other teams in the conference. But I personally have the Bears taking the next playoff spot at 10-6, regardless of who's playing quarterback. I know Tim said that they are going to be worse than that, in his opinion. I want to say he said like 6 or 7 wins. But I think the defense may start getting back to a formidable unit this season. I do believe the Vic Fangio departure last year hurt them more than people thought it would. But I think another year in this system will be good for them. And the offense will do their part to get the team into the tournament, at least. How far once there, not so sure they make it past the wild card weekend. I did find it odd that 3 out of the 4 teams in the division have their bye week in week 5, which I believe plays to their disadvantage. Obviously, having a bye week that early in the season, no team really wants that. This being Packers, Vikings, Lions, which we talked about earlier. Speaking of the Lions, though, I have them coming in 3rd, fighting for another wild card spot, 6th or 7th, most likely going 9-7. But if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think you may see Matt Patricia shown the door. Then the Vikings coming in last place in the division with a 9-7 record as well. The Vikings and Lions might be switched around, but I don't think the Vikings will have a better conference or division record. Well, that's all for today, guys. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to see videos like this one in the future, please subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on all notifications for Sports Talk with Chavez. If you'd like to go above and beyond to help out the channel, you can become a patron on my Patreon page. We're going to have some merchandise coming soon, and anyone that is subscribed there will get some cool stuff sent to them when we do start releasing items. It's a secret as to what they will be for right now, but hey, just know it's something to show my appreciation for you guys being awesome. But that Patreon link, along with my social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, will be in the description below. As always, any and all input is welcome. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Peace and love.